We're glad so many people committed time over the next 60 minutes to hear our presenter, Justin Vajko. So his business is called Dialog Design Company at the website recruitwithdialog.com. I'll say that again, recruitwithdialog.com. And one thing is certain, he's passionate about connecting great employees with even greater employers. I probably screwed that up. And he's assisted numerous companies successfully recruiting employees with techniques that he will explain in a moment. Just a little bit about Justin. He lives in Chippewa Falls with his wife and 3 children in their first home, where he's on a steep learning curve involving non-working appliances and leaky faucets. And so I've got some advice there. Have you tried YouTube? Have you tried YouTube? So this is a very informal setting. We want it to be informative, of course. Nita Dusick is managing the system and the chat function and so on. And as questions do come up, please use the chat function. We're going to leave time at the very end for questions as well. And so with that, I'm going to welcome Justin and turn the program over to him.
Thank you, Bill, and everyone. Good to have you here. I'm excited to be able to present to you this topic that to me is not just my business, but something that I'm quite passionate about, which is what you want from someone in business, right? You don't want somebody who's just dialing it in, hopefully. So let me share my screen and we'll get started here. So today we're going to talk about the concept of how to fill your talent pipeline and the 5 critical factors that are probably affecting your talent pipeline. A caveat before I get started. I've given this talk on the 3 critical factors. This is the first time I'm doing the 5, but I think it's, so we might, I always like to leave time at the end for questions and answers because there's usually a lot of that. A lot of these concepts are new to a lot of folks. They've never really wrapped their heads around it, never done it. And so I like to leave time for that. So just a caveat, we might run out of time today. And if we do feel free to reach out to me. I'm an open book, and I'll put my email in here at the end so that you can email me if you do have any questions. We do run out of time. But we've got an hour, roughly speaking. Hopefully this hour is going to be really helpful for you. So a little bit about me. I have a marketing background. I've been doing this for over a decade. I started my career, you could argue, in grade school. When I was I remember my first marketing project was my mom commissioned me to design the invitations for her tea party. I think I was 8 years old, and I loved it. I used the computer and everything, and that was interesting to me. So I ended up going to school at UW-Eau Claire for graphic design. And so I've been doing various types of marketing for a very long time. You name the type of marketing, I've probably done it. I'm a dad of 3 and a husband of 1. And I'm very passionate about creating great workplaces. I've had the fortune of working for others doing marketing for 8 years out of my career. And I learned what it's like to be an employee. I learned what it's like to be in a nonprofit. I learned what it's like to be at a manufacturing facility. And when I started my business, it was in manufacturing, and now we are not manufacturing, in marketing. And now we focus solely on helping employers find employees through marketing techniques, which in my opinion gives us an edge over some very traditional, more reactive marketing or employee finding techniques, let's put it that way. So about Dialog, we are a recruitment marketing agency. You might hear the word employer branding. You might hear the word employee marketing. There's different names for what we do, but we're a recruitment marketing agency for blue collar employers in Wisconsin. And so what we do is we use social media, videos, and online reviews to help employers find great employees. And that is actually our mission statement here, where we believe there are enough crappy workplaces out there. Raise your hand, or maybe don't, I don't know. But if you've ever been part of a crappy workplace, we all have, right? It's just, everyone, it's like it's normal, unfortunately, to have everyone to have been part of that. But we want to change that. That's my mission. If I can look back on my career, I want to be able to say that we helped great companies find great talent, and we want to connect the great people with the great companies using what we're doing. So here's the 5 learning outcomes we're going to learn about today. Why culture is a foundation to all recruiting campaigns. How to create a great employer value proposition. You might have heard that term before if you're in the HR world or near it. 3, how to take control of your online reviews. Very, very important thing to do these days. 4, why video is the new normal for recruiting top talent. And 5, how to use social media to build your employer brand, that reputation that you have as an employer. All right. So about you, if you're here, it probably means that you're asked, you're in or related to the HR problem. Maybe you're leading a company, maybe you know about this and you've been tasked with learning more about it and trying to solve this problem. But if you're in HR, especially, you're asked to do more than ever before. It is not an easy job being in HR these days. Especially, I mean, honestly, this is a slide I designed before the pandemic, and how much more real is this now that we've had the pandemic? So it's easy, you're overwhelmed, the job boards aren't working, and you're probably ready for change at this point. So good news, I'm going to teach you some things you can change to make your life a little bit easier in terms of recruiting good talent. So first, before we dive into the 5 factors, I want to talk about this question that I think a lot of people think they know the answer to, but they actually don't. There's a lot of misinformation out there and a lot of strong opinions, but strong opinions are not facts. So we're going to cover some of these facts so that you can go back to your boss and to your board or whoever and say, actually, this is why there's a problem. And hopefully this will uncover why this issue needs to be addressed in more than the way that we've already been addressing it with, which is just doing more of the same. So where did all the people go? Let's answer that question. Well, over the years, ever since the 1960s or so, the labor participation rate has actually been dropping very slowly. So that means less and less people are working. And you could attribute that to people, retiring, which is certainly happening right now. You could attribute it to maybe some people deciding that they want to do something else with their life. Maybe they want to be a stay-at-home mom rather than working. There's a lot of reasons for this. Nothing, we're not going to blame anyone. We're not going to point fingers, but this is the reality of the situation. So this has been happening, right? This isn't something like the pandemic revealed. This has just been happening. So you can see that's a 5% drop for the last few decades. So that is a factor. We're going to talk about, okay, that's a factor. Keep that in mind. This is already happening. Here's another big one. Last year, 2.5 million women exited the workforce during the pandemic. And we kind of have an idea why that is, right? Childcare facilities closed down or weren't available. There was some, health concerns, or, kids were out of school. Mom, or sometimes dad, had to be home to watch the kids. That's certainly what happened in our family. My wife took on that role. She was looking at getting work in March of 2020. She's like, well, things are pretty under control here. I think I'll go look for work. And guess what happened that month? The pandemic. And so she stayed home, and she was in a place, fortunately, where she was able to just seamlessly continue to stay home and just be the at-home teacher, I guess you could call her, for that season. And this is a trend that unfortunately isn't going away. And we still have a pandemic. We still have issues with childcare, right? And if you look at today's statistics, I was just looking at it to make sure I had some updated data for you. There are still 1.8 million women who have not gone back into the workforce since 2020. So yeah, 2.5 million women exited. Not all of them came back. 1.8 million are probably not going to come back. I was reading an article from NPR, for example, about it. And one of those deals is a lot of these women have discovered maybe that career wasn't something they wanted to do, or the odd jobs they were doing or whatever weren't fulfilling, or maybe it's just better to be at home. And this might be a commitment they have for years to come. So this isn't changing anytime soon. So that's another factor. Here's some other factors, and I want to address these. I know we're past this point, But I do want to address it because this was the biggest lie people believed about why there weren't enough employees. People thought, right, oh, it's all those people on unemployment, they're lazy and blah, blah, blah. Well, actually, they did a survey back in about a year ago, October of 2020, and they asked people who were not working, why are you not working? And only 9% of those responding said they weren't working because of the comfortable unemployment benefits. That's less than 1 out of 10 were not working because of unemployment benefits being a deal. The bigger factor for many of those was 23% of them said, well, I'm not working because I've got these fears of COVID. I don't want to get it. I'm in a workplace, whether it's a restaurant or hotel or whatever, where I'm afraid of getting COVID, which is a legitimate fear. We can't dismiss that fear. So that was over twice as big of a factor than people saying unemployment benefits were generous. So that's something I want us to be aware of. It's not because people are lazy. It's simply because of other factors. And then we have this one here. People with poor fit jobs got a taste of something different and finally decided to quit. Now, I don't have any statistics to show you, but we've all been kind of a little familiar with the idea of the Great Resignation. And there's this discontent as people got to work from home, or maybe they were laid off. They got to experience something different, right? And that different experience caused them to rethink the path they were on with their career. There's this quote that came from this lady named Valerie Mecki. She was laid off in 2020. She was on the East Coast and she was laid off. And then she started her own business. And she says, a lot of people had a lot of time to think about what direction they wanted to take after they came out of the pandemic. She says, everyone has been gifted this time to sit down and really think about what they want to do next. So there's this major shift that we've all experienced in the last year and a half. That's not actually going away anytime soon, because the pandemic is just one, it's a catalyst for the changes that have actually already been happening. It's made some things worse. Yes, like this quote means that some people are thinking about changing jobs who maybe never thought about it. But ultimately, this is the biggest factor. Baby boomers retiring from the workforce. And we know this is the biggest factor. We have data to back that up. Here's a stat from Quartz. You can see the retirement rates over time from left to right in 2017 to 2021. Look at this giant jump. That was 2020. So basically the retirement rate went from 18.5 to now over 19.5% of folks in the United States being retired. That is a major change in the market. Now, 1% here, 3% here, 2% here may not seem like a lot, but you add those up, it has the effect of this. Do you guys remember when in the beginning of the pandemic, there was a lack of toilet paper, right? That was really annoying. You'd go to the store, it's like, there's no toilet paper. Well, what did we all say was happening with that toilet paper? Well, it's the hoarders, and you get in the news, you'd see maybe one person with a stockpile, and every so often you see that and it would back up this belief, right? We'd say, oh, there's this belief I have, it's the hoarders, and you see it every so often. But actually they did a study after that and they come find out, they discovered it wasn't the hoarders that were causing the shortages. Do you know what it was? It was everybody was buying one or two more, and that was just enough that the stores couldn't support that amount of volume, that amount of demand. And so in the same way, we see this happening here where it's not one factor. It's not that people are lazy and they were depending on generous employment benefits. It's the fact that now we have this baby boomers retiring at a faster rate than ever before, women exiting the workforce at this huge number all of a sudden, and a lot of people choosing not to work because of COVID fears, and et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. You name it, it's all being piled on. But the big takeaway I want you to realize is that the pandemic, again, isn't going away anytime soon in terms of solving, like the pandemic going away isn't going to solve this problem, because you can see here, this is a chart of baby boomers right here. And if they all retire, look at this number. Is there enough of a population of Generation X to replace them? No, there is not. So all these very highly skilled positions, all this knowledge, it's all going away very slowly, and people are trickling out of the workforce. And then Generation X is meant to replace them, but there's what is that, a 9 million person shortage right there? There just aren't enough people to fill those roles. So what we have is a generational gap that we're trying to solve, and we think, it can happen quickly. It's not going to happen quickly. So what I want us to understand from today's talk, this is a big takeaway I want you to realize. For the first time in our lives, for most of us, it's an employee market. The balance is shifted from the employers to the employees. And it's as if we think, think about this. I want you to think about this. There's Chris Sarnik from, he's a colleague of mine, and he said it this way. If we put a now hiring sign on the side of our building, expecting to get applications, it's like someone putting a now selling sign on the side of their building, expecting to get sales. It just doesn't work that way, right? We've got to make a case for why someone should work there. And unfortunately, or fortunately, depending on which way you look at it, we've been blessed for a long time to not have to make the case, because you put out a job on the job board and people would come in droves, and you get to pick, the best candidate, and you're good to go. Unfortunately, the pandemic has really exacerbated the issue, and we know you can't do that anymore. So we've got to learn to think like marketers, essentially. And what do marketers do? Well, they help you make the case for selling something, a product or a service. And in our case, we can help you in today's session figure out how, and those 5 factors to sell your jobs and get proactive with your recruiting. All right. So I want you guys to think about this. This is something I like to do. These are some of the slides I pull from my workshop. I have never done this before. You're the first recipients of this, but I want you to think about this. This is a very critical point in this talk, because if you don't actually put some numbers behind the problem, it's going to continue to be a problem. Why? Well, because we don't take action until we know, the cost to us. So there's actually some very real costs to your business in terms of time and money. So I have 3 questions here, and you can just write down quick answers. Number 1, how much time has your team spent in the last year on solving recruiting problems? Just in the last year, do a gross, hours, weeks, whatever. Think about, like, last week, how much time did I spend? Okay, I spent 5 hours trying to find people and getting applications in and getting ghosted and blah, 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 blah. And the week before that was 7 hours. So on average, maybe it's 6 hours a week times 52. There you go. That's the answer to question number 1. How much time has your team spent in the last year? Number 2, how much time will you spend in the next 3 years with this problem based on what I've told you? So the pandemic, it might go away at some point. It might come back up in terms of like seasonal flu type activity, like, oh, everyone put their mask on again. It's fall time. It's like flu shot, but it will eventually go away. Think about this. How much time will you spend in the next 3 years with this problem of recruiting? Because again, we covered this is not going away anytime soon. There's a generational gap. Number 3, how much money will you spend in the next 3 years because of this problem? Think about staffing agencies, sponsoring those posts on Indeed, all the advertising, maybe in the newspapers and things like that. The software you've spent on to make sure that, you're getting the right candidates, and it's other, any other investments, maybe hiring someone on board, or, working with a recruitment agency, whatever. How much money will you spend in the next 3 years because of this problem? This is a big problem to not let it be solved. And here's the easy math. Even if you don't know some of those other answers, you can certainly do this. If you're not sure the cost of what it's costing you to not have somebody in your company to be doing the work, take their hourly rate, multiply it times 3, and then figure out how many total hours that person isn't working until the position is filled. Quick tip for you, SHRM says it takes an average of 42 days to fill the average position in the United States. Now factor in the fact that you could be getting ghosted and there's some pandemic, maybe that's shorter, maybe that's longer for you, but the average is 42 days. So 42 days times, let's say 8 hours or 10 hours, whatever, times 3 times the hourly rate. That is what your business is incurring in lost opportunity cost or actual cost in not having someone in that seat. This is a very expensive problem. It's a very expensive problem. So make sure you do that math real quick. Hourly rate times 3 times total hours that position isn't filled. That's just one position. So the question is asked, how do we solve this massive headache? How do we do it? There's no silver bullet. First of all, I want to tell you that there's no silver quick win bullet. If you're here for quick wins and silver bullets, you're not going to get them. I'm going to give you some tough love here. I'm going to give you some tough answers. But ultimately, it starts with having the mindset that we know that saying now hiring won't work. You need to sell your job openings. So that's a mindset shift. All right, let's talk about a key insight, and we'll talk about factor number 1 that's related to this key insight. So key insight number 1, 46% of employees are passively looking for new careers. That's probably a higher number today than it was because why? Well, I got this number from the statistics before the pandemic. So we can imagine this number is probably higher today. Now, what does that mean, passively looking for new careers? Well, they're not on the job boards. These are folks that are not actually going on Indeed.com. They're not going to Glassdoor. They're not looking for jobs. They're not looking at the newspapers, for the job section, whatever. They're not looking for work, but they're open to another position if it comes along and meets them and they're interested and piques their interest and they think, well, that's perfect for me. I might actually like that. So with such a large number, it's shocking to me how very few employers have actually thought about going after this market, because it's an opportunity, is what I see here. Here's the next issue here with this. So we talked about 46% of people of Americans are looking for work passively. They're open to a new job. Here's the next piece of insight. A lot of employers think that they're well known in the market, but unfortunately they're not. Most companies have zero reputation in the job market. 70% of people don't know about you. 20% of the people who do know about you think they know what they know about you. So they assume they know about you, like what you do. And only about 10% know all about you and choose somewhere else. And these, again, are numbers I've gotten from my colleague, Chris Sarnick. He talks about this very concept that, unfortunately, we just kind of get in our own heads. We think, well, yeah, we've been here for 30 years. We've been manufacturing widgets. And of course, everybody knows about us. But you guys, you'd be shocked at how many people just don't know about you as an employer. People are zoned into their life. They're not thinking about, they're not looking around. They're not thinking about life around them. Most people aren't. And they're not aware of you as an employer. So what that tells me is that's a marketing problem. That's an awareness problem. That's an advertising problem. So to win the hiring game, you need to think like a marketer. So you got to put on your pink and black striped marketing hat. That's what I do every day. That here in my office. Just kidding. I don't do that. But you got to be creative. You got to put on your marketing hat and think, okay, what I'm doing now isn't working. What am I going to do? I'm going to get proactive with posting jobs in creative places and telling the story of what it's like to work here. So let's talk about the 5 factors. Number 1, culture. So I want to talk about what is culture real quick, so there's no assumptions about what I'm talking about. There's a lot of definitions of culture. Here's how we at Dialog define it. It's a gut feeling that is shared by a majority of the people working for you. 3 things: gut feeling, shared by a majority of the people working for you. So gut feeling, it's not, if you ask one person at your company, what's the culture here? They might say, it's caring. Another person might say, well, I feel like I'm seen here. And so if you get a trend in what people are answering, then you've got a culture that is actually worth talking about. A culture is not what you want it to be. A culture is what it is. Every company has a culture, good or bad, or anything in between. It's a spectrum, right? And by the way, there's no perfect culture, but it's a gut feeling that's shared by a majority of the people working for you. So over 50% of the people believe the same thing about what it's like to work there. That's a good place, or that's a bad place, or that's it's like any other place. Here's some signs of a good culture. Excuse me. Lots of great applicants. Now, these days, you might not get the lots part, but you still should be able to get great applicants. Good people want to work for good companies. So you'll get a bunch of, you might get some crappy applicants, of course, but you'll get great applicants in there. Low turnover, minimal office drama, employee referrals, trust in leadership, trust in each other, good financial performance, business efficiency, happy people. Those are signs of a good culture. By the way, culture is not, I've got a slide. Do I have it here? Yeah, I don't have a slide, so I'll talk about it quick. Culture is not the perks you offer. It's not ping pong tables and like pet insurance. Those are perks. Those are signs that you care about your people. Those are outcomes of the culture you're trying to build. Those are not culture. Culture, again, is that gut feeling that people feel cared for? So why culture? Why is that number 1, Justin? Well, because it's a foundation to any good recruitment strategy. it helps with recruitment and retention. If you were to hire us today and I said, what's your culture about? And you said, well, we don't really take care of our people. We could pay them more and our benefits are pretty poor, but we're trying to save costs and whatever, you got your reasons. And I say, well, sorry, we can bring you people in, but if you just spit them right out, that's not what we're all about. And that's not going to help you out either. So culture is extremely important. In fact, if you can work on your culture and get it to a certain point, you don't have to hire agencies like us because you've got such a good system set up where your people feel cared for. A, they're not going to leave, and B, they're going to tell their friends about what it's like to work there, and they're going to want to work there. And so if you don't know your culture, ask your people, do a survey, organize your results by department, because guess what? You're going to have subcultures within your companies. If you got the sales team, they've got a culture. You got your production floor, they've got a culture. You got your front office staff, they got a culture. So try to figure out what that is. You can ask your people, you can do surveys. SurveyMonkey is great for that. There's a lot of other services out there that you can use to figure out what your culture is. And then what you do with that is you tell your story. Now, why does that matter? Because, and this is another number, our business is built off of this number, by the way. This is incredibly important to remember. 84% of Americans are willing to take a pay cut and change jobs if the culture is better. Does it say 84% of Americans are willing to take a change jobs if the pay's better? Nope. That number's up there, but it's not 84%. So culture is so important. We spend so much of our lives for our employer, working at our employer. Think about it. It's a bigger decision than buying a car, buying a house and buying any product or service out there. This is a huge decision where you're going to spend a lot of the years of your life often. So people want to know they're cared for, and they'll even be willing to take a pay cut. That's the reason why a lot of people will even choose to do that on a regular basis. I know this company, there's two options, A and B. This one's going to pay more, but this one, man, I just feel like I can be part of something, and they're going to help me build. I'm going to build something that's valuable over here, and I'll have a legacy and blah, blah, blah. Like, there's more to being human than just getting well paid. It's also enjoying your work. So if you can nail down the culture element, you're going to go a lot farther than tons of your competitors. So culture is important. That's the first thing we want to identify. Without culture, without even understanding what your culture is, you're going to struggle in the rest of these points. Why? Because you're not going to know how to tell your story about what it's like to work there and be able to get people looped in about how it is that you care for people. In my workshop, and I don't have a slide for this, but in my workshop, I like to talk about it this way. Pretend there's a spectrum. There's a bunch of dots or like a line on a piece of paper. And on one end of the line, you have not at all. And on the other side, you have very much so. And we asked the question, to what degree do your people feel cared for? That's a great way for you just to do a quick gut check about what your culture is all about. And if it's, if on one side, if your dot, where you replace your dot on that spectrum, you can put it wherever you want, just as a gut check. It's not a scientific thing at all by any means, but wherever you put that dot, what are your culture, what you can talk about are, what are all the reasons why you can, your culture is not at zero. If your culture is at zero, there's nothing you can do. But if you were to say, let's say, put it in the middle or put it 2/3 of the way, why did you do that? What are those reasons? And those are the reasons that you can then talk about in some of these other points about why it's worth having somebody come and work for you. So hopefully that's a helpful little tip. I covered it kind of quickly because we don't really have time to dive into it in depth, but do feel free to ask me questions about that here. All right, factor number 2, online reviews. This is just the reality where we are today. I mean, we've all been on Amazon going to buy the pair of shoes, and we look at the reviews. We're like, is this going to fit me? My feet are kind of wide. I'm not really sure, blah, blah, blah. We look at the reviews to find out. Well, the same thing happens with employers with reviews. And we like to maybe think it doesn't happen because often those reviews aren't really positive. So we're like, well, hopefully no one's reading those. Well, unfortunately, I have bad news. They are. 2 out of 3 people are who are looking for a job say their decision to apply to a job is influenced by reading company reviews. So if you don't have a handle on your company reviews, that's going to hurt your recruitment because people are going to check you out. Again, people are making a major decision to work for you, and they will often check you out. So you can see here on the right side, this is a screenshot from Google My Business. Google My Business is like the new yellow book. If you look up a business by name, you will often find on the right side of the screen this pop up. This is a mix of reviews. This is customer reviews plus employee reviews. So you've got an employee review here, awesome place to work, awesome people to work with, 5 stars, great, okay. And then you've got an a customer review and a customer review. So This is just one example. The main platform where your employees are going to be looking, or prospective employees are going to be looking, is on Indeed.com or Glassdoor. Those are both platforms that are review platforms, but also Indeed is more of a job platform, but they also are including the reviews more and more. Glassdoor now belongs to Indeed, or actually, I think Indeed belongs to Glassdoor. I forget which one owns which. So what that means is over time, we can expect to see more integration between the two platforms, where Glassdoor is a review heavy platform. It's meant to give people data about what it's, how much should I expect to get paid? What are some of the typical interview questions? What is it actually like to work there? And Glassdoor is good at giving people an idea of that, and it's integrating more and more with Indeed. So this is going to be a very critical thing for you over the coming years, if not already. So if you don't know, how to, where people review you, they're going to be on Indeed, Glassdoor, LinkedIn, and Google My Business. And then let's see here. So Indeed, this is a quick screenshot for anybody that's never done this before. So if you go to Indeed, you type in your business, you can see over on the right side here, it says claim this company page. If it doesn't say claim this company page, that means you've already had somebody within your company claim it. And if you're in HR and you're like the only HR person and someone's already claimed it, odds are it could have been your CEO, or it could have been your previous HR person who never gave you administrative rights, which sucks. And you'll have to figure out a way to get there. But hopefully, it's easy for you to just claim that page and then take ownership of it. And that takes a few days. And then you can, there's some cool things you can do here with this once you have access to it. So why do you want to claim the pages? This is, how to do it on Glassdoor. You do the same thing, claim this company. And on Google My Business, this is our company, Dialog Design Company. You click right here, own this business, and it walks you through how to claim it. But why do you want to claim it? Because you want to make sure that you're filling out your profile and you have complete amount of information. If you got a good culture, you want to talk about that. You want to put your logo on there, of course. You want to put a cover image, usually something like employees, enjoying maybe a day out, having fun together or doing their work, whatever. You want to put your employer value proposition on there. We'll talk about that in a second. You want to put your tagline on there. You want to put your mission statement, what you believe out on there. Now, only if it's actually true, right? We don't want to put just kind of like these mission statements that mean nothing. They're come from a dusty, like, what's our mission statement again? Oh yeah, let me pull out that dusty thing. Don't do that. Don't, if your mission statement is not actually lived out by your company daily, don't put it on your website. People see right through it. But if it's one you actually do live by and your leaders repeat it, it's like a mantra in the company, put it on there. Photos and videos of what it's like to work there. And then you can update those platforms. But you want to do that because it's showing prospective employees a glimpse into what it's like to work there. We have so much information about what we can buy from a single shoe on Amazon, but so often so very little information about what a job's going to be like. So the very least you can do is go to Indeed and Glassdoor and Google My Business and fill out some of this information so that prospective job seekers can feel confident about applying for you to the job there. And then here's the other reason you want to claim those. You want to be able to respond to reviews. I'm actually not going to go into this in depth because I want to make sure we stay on time here. But you want to go through all three of these points. I'm going to go through them briefly here. Respond to all reviews, good and bad, good and bad. Respond as soon as possible. So go back even as far as, let's say you've never done this before, go back as far as 6 months. Good and bad reviews, respond to them. And then for bad reviews, take a break if they upset you, because we've all been there. We want to just kind of type back our answers to the person and no, take a break, come back to it later when you feel better, and then be sincere and address the concern they have and take it offline if they're bad reviews, especially if they're still an employee. Hey, we've got a great process for this. We're sorry you're having a bad time. Please give us a shout here at HR. We'll look to address this or talk about this with you. There's definitely tons of language you can find online too, if you're ever curious about how to respond to bad reviews. Respond to good reviews, you just have to say thank you. It's really great that you left us a great review, whatever, be creative. You can use your own wording. But again, Google is a wonderful resource for you if you're ever wondering how to respond to things, reviews. And here's another reason you want to take ownership of those platforms, because guess what? You can also request reviews. Glassdoor allows you to, if you do certain things with it, you actually can put in your company information and you can actually send it out to your team through Glassdoor. Or, the easiest way is just literally to tell, folks within your company at team meetings, or maybe put a little postcard on, like a little tabletop postcard, on the break table or whatever, say, hey, leave us a review as an employer. We're trying to find more great people like you. And this will help us help more people feel confident about applying here. And so this is how you can request reviews. You put it out there in different things, emails, texting, paycheck stubs. hey, would you want to review us? And yeah, you'll open up yourself up to negative reviews. That does happen. But on the flip side, you also, the goal is to basically get more people who are having a good experience. They just never think of reviewing you to actually review you to balance out all the negative reviews. And that does happen. In fact, here at Dialog, we have a system that allows us to do just that. We announce the campaign to folks within the company with the HR team. We say, hey, it usually comes from the HR team. Hey, we're sending out this email soon. It's going to be for requesting reviews. We want to help, help the company find more great people like you. And when you get the link, go ahead and click on it, and they get a text and get an email, and they can click on there. And I won't go into the details of how the system works because it's actually more than that. But essentially, we see reviews go up. We had one employer in Western Wisconsin over a 4-month period, went from a 2.5 to a 3.2 on Indeed, just through those requesting reviews. Why? Well, because again, it's only usually the grumpy people who leave reviews. So request reviews from all of your employees, and you'll tend to see your reviews go up. And that's important for prospective job seekers. All right, so we talked about culture, why that's important, how to, kind of identify that. And number 2, we talked about reviews. Number 3, we're going to talk about an employer value proposition. This is something that is actually relatively, this is kind of the low-hanging fruit. The lowest hanging fruit, I would say, is number 2. We just covered online reviews. If you take nothing else from today, that's the one takeaway you can just go and run with. You don't need my help necessarily. But number 3, this is also a lower amount of hanging fruit because it's just talking about your company in a succinct way. So making sure you have a really good, concise statement about what it's like to work there. So an employer value proposition, or an EVP, is basically a summary or a pitch or an explanation, an elevator pitch, for example, of what it's like to work for you. You need to have a concise statement so that you can use that on your website, on your, your review websites, Indeed, and things like that, on Facebook, wherever you show up. You want to make sure on your brochure, on your job descriptions, and at the end of your job description, you have about us. That's where your employer value proposition goes. That message is one that you are actually connecting your workplace with your ideal kind of candidate. And so what an employer value proposition does is it does 5 things. It describes the current situation of your not yet employee. It describes the current situation of your not yet employee. So for example, if you're in manufacturing and you're looking for entry-level production workers, that's a lot of our clients, you're going to pull those not from manufacturing, you're going to pull those from outside of manufacturing. So we would describe their current situation as maybe it's chaotic, maybe they've got a crazy schedule, maybe they don't have a satisfying job, maybe there's no way to move up in the company, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Those are all the negative things about their current situation. And then describe what you offer. That's the second thing good EVP does. A job, and then make your promise. It's not, we offer a career where you can do your best work. You can enjoy, coming into work. You don't have to feel crappy about coming into work, whatever. That's your promise. And then back it up. Give some reasons why they're going to actually believe your promise. Because we have, in case of one of our clients, we have an on-site clinic, and we have, forget some of the other ones, but there's some other good reasons. Oh, a great plan for moving up in the company. So you're not going to get, lost in the shuffle, and you're not a number, and whatever. There's a lot of good ways you can back up your promise. But that takes a little bit of thinking, right? You can't just automatically throw out there the same thing everybody else throws out, which is, oh, we have a 401k, we have a blah, blah, blah. No, those are the regular benefits. Think about the actual things your people want. They expect a 401k. They expect benefits. They expect things like that. So what are some things that they may not expect that they want that you can actually deliver on, and bake those into your EVP? And you'd be surprised at the opportunities even small companies have to do something like this. Maybe it's like a crazy amount of pay because you're getting like double overtime, because that's the way we roll. We have a lot of overtime available. There are like a lot of people out there who are looking for jobs with overtime. There maybe, maybe they don't care so much for as much of their personal life, but they want to be working all the time. And you can attract those kinds of folks with, overtime offers. That's just one example. There are plenty of them out there. And then the last thing a good EVP structure talks about is describing the transformation from before to after. So so that you can go from this to this. Let's talk about, let's show you here one of the nonprofits that we did, so you can kind of see this in action. So what if your work allowed you to live out your passion to help people? At the Community Blood Center, every person on our team is part of a critical link that connects blood donors to patients in our community who need it. Because this work demands compassion and grit, we only hire people who want to be part of a tight-knit team united in the goal of saving lives. But the reward? You'll leave work every day knowing you gave people in your community a chance to recover from injury, battle cancer, and fight disease. Our employees get it. Here's the list of those 3 things that back up the care, their promise. Our employees get a complete set of benefits, not just regular benefits, but complete. So that's important. Valuable training to launch their careers in healthcare. At the Community Blood Center, your work is the link to life for our community. So that's a tagline we actually created for them that they get to keep and use. Here's Dialog Contour manufacturer. Most workplaces leave their employees feeling stressed and unfulfilled, but here in Dialog Contour, you'll discover a stable environment where you can do your best work. You'll be surrounded by a great team to support you in making critical medical parts for famous brands. You'll find that the high level of care and attention we put into our products is the same care and attention we give our employees. Our people enjoy perks like an on-site clinic, regular incentive bonuses, and clear promotion opportunities. Those are those 3. Because at Dialog Contour, we believe work should make things better. And we talk about what that means in some of their posts, not just better for us, but better for you, better for your family, things like that. So that's what an employer value proposition does. It helps set you apart amongst all the other employers in a statement about what it's like to work there. It gives people a little bit of a glimpse if they read that about why they should consider you. It's like a pitch, essentially. All right. Take a quick drink of water here before we dive into video. The 4th factor, video. So video is the new normal. I'm not going to dive into why it is. It just is. Like, it is the new normal. I mean, this is a Zoom call, right? I'm not in person. This is now normal. So people expect to be able to learn information on video, on social media, on your website, on YouTube. And video is the best way, in my opinion, to describe what's happening within your company without using any words or anything like that. I mean, it's just, if a picture speaks 1,000 words, a video speaks 1 billion. So here's some ideas for you to get you going. If like, yeah, we've been wanting to do video. Here's some topics for you to cover to be able to think about. Do like a promo video. And this is what we do for our clients. Use your EVP as the script. We just talked about what your EVP is. Like, how do you talk about your company? Use it as the script. You can do a voiceover, or you can talk about like, what are those 3 things that, tell them, hey, Bob, tell me about why do you like to work here? Well, I like to work here because of this reason, that, and then that should be one of those 3 reasons you mentioned. Make a short one and a long one. Do some day in the life videos. Hey, Bob, tell me about what you do here in your, in your job. Well, I do this, this, and this is what my day looks like. And keep them short, a minute, 2 minutes at the max. Do onboarding videos. That's a great way to explain to people what's coming up, to explain to them, hey, this is, you're getting the, you're going to get this interview. And then if that's successful, you go to this phase, and we'll talk about this, and we'll go to this phase. Make it extremely clear on the front end what people are in for. And that actually might even reduce your ghosting, by the way, if you can do some onboarding videos and be clear up front. And maybe even do some user-generated videos. If you're a big enough employer, or you've got an engaged workforce, you can do user-generated videos. So things like, hey guys, we're going to do this campaign. We're going to tell people what it's like to work here. Tell us like what are your hobbies? Because we know that's a huge part of like the people that work here. We're a company, we're a manufacturer. A lot of us like to make things. So what do you make at home? And then get people to send in their videos, and you can cut them up and make some cool videos out of it. And there's a lot of ways to do user-generated videos. Just a few topics. Now, where do you put your videos? You put them on your website. You should have a landing page where you should have like an idea. People should be able to visit, your career page and say, what's it like to work here? Instead of just seeing the job openings, they actually want to learn more. They want to see people talking about the workplace. They want to see the workplace. They want to know these kinds of things, get the vibe of what it's like to work there. So put it on your website, put it on social media, put it on groups on social media. You might not realize, but a business on social media, on Facebook, for example, can join a group, and you can put it in that group and say, hey, everybody, if you're looking for work, check out what it's like to work here at XYZ Corporation. And put the video on there, and that's free advertising. And also don't forget to put it on your online review sites like Indeed, Glassdoor, and Google My Business. All right, so here's an example of a video that looks like you know what, we're gonna skip over this because I wanna make sure we have just a little bit of time. But if you want some examples of our videos, you can see them on our website at recruitwithdialog.com. Dialog is DIALOG.com. I think you can see this one. Just to get an idea of like what the promo videos should look like. And it's going to play it. It always does this when I try to go to the next slide. Hold on, here we go. There we go. And then we got one from another manufacturer, and it's got the captions. Why does it have the captions, Justin? Because when you put this on Facebook, people don't often have the volume on. So when you do promo videos, you want to make sure you have captions on there. And so this is designed for Facebook. I wouldn't put this on your website with the captions. We have a separate one, just the frame video. But if it's on Facebook, for example, or Instagram, we want to make sure it has the captions so people can just read those if they're like, at work or whatever, they don't want the audio on for whatever reason. All right. And we're going to keep going here. All right. So that's video. We covered that. And basically, there's a lot of cool ways to do video, guys. All you need is your stinking phone these days. You don't need anything special. And then you get a gimbal. They're $120 on Amazon, Gimbal. A gimbal is just it's a camera. It's a steadying. It's a tool that allows you to steady your camera or your phone. And that's all you need. And there's free video editing software out there. We're not going to dive into that. It is not hard to do. There is a bit of a learning curve, but don't let that detract you from giving it a shot. It's a huge opportunity because guess what? 99% of people are not doing this. So if you can do it, you'll already be like just doing it, not even quality, just doing it will put you ahead of like 99% of other employers in this area. All right, number 5, social media. Let's zoom through this here. 79% of candidates use social media when searching for their next opportunity. So they're vetting you on the web review websites. And guess what? They're also vetting you on Facebook. They're Facebook stalking you. They're checking out, is this employer legit? What is it actually like to work here? Why does that matter to get on social media? Because everyone's using it. Here's some stats to back that up. I usually have to go in this in depth. Actually, YouTube, this stat is old. It's now 81% of Americans use YouTube because guess what? A pandemic happened and everybody was like stuck at home and stuff, I guess. I don't know. And so everybody got on YouTube. So they saw almost a 9% jump or whatever that was over a year's time. So it's really important to get on social media. So if you're not on social media, if you haven't decided to do that, pick LinkedIn to start and then one more. So I'd recommend usually just Facebook. So LinkedIn and Facebook are a really, really healthy start. If you're more mature than that, you've already been doing some things and you're looking at different audiences, you might check out Snapchat or TikTok if you're going for 18-year-olds plus, that very young demographic, if you're in retail or hospitality or whatever, and you're looking for that age, that's a great one for you. That will require you to do video and photography, but that's where you want to go. And LinkedIn is more for white collar jobs, more skilled labor, but not all skilled labor, more white collar. I say skilled labor, it doesn't mean a machinist is going to be on LinkedIn, but the white collar jobs are going to be there. And then YouTube is good for all of it. Facebook's good for all of it. Instagram is good for the younger generation as well. So there's different platforms you can use depending on what kind of employees you're trying to build a relationship with. And ultimately, that's what this is all about, building a relationship. Some post topics, employee engagement activities. I mean, if you're not doing employee engagement activities, it does speak to how much you care about your culture. If you're not doing pizza parties, if you're not doing getaways, if you're not doing giveaways, if you're not doing involved activities with your team that are not work related in order to build your team, that will speak to how well you care about your people. So, but if you are doing those are definitely things you want to put on social media. Anniversaries of, hey, Bob's been here for 15 years. Lunches that you do, getaways, those are usually employee engagement activities, but maybe you can highlight an employee. This is, again, Bob, he's been here 15 years. Bob, what do you like about working here? And here's Bob's pet and whatever. There's all sorts of ways you can do that. It's up to you how you want to do that. And then achievements, maybe of your employees there, some of the benefits you can highlight if they're worth talking about, community involvement, if you have like a volunteer day or if you have like some kind of donation you've made, talk about those things. And this is just a short list, right? There are dozens of other options available for you to post about on LinkedIn. A quick starter strategy, one platform, one post a week, and then promote one post a month. That means put a little bit of dollars behind it so it gets out to people who don't yet like your page, so that they can learn about you and they can like your page, and then they can start seeing all of your other content that you do. All right. So last thing from this, if you haven't yet scheduled time, I would encourage you spend a little bit of time, spend 5 minutes, schedule a weekly slot of time to help you apply what you've learned today. Maybe you need to develop your EVP. Maybe you need to respond to reviews and sign up for that platform. Maybe you need to create some posts for LinkedIn or whatever, and you got to brainstorm. You got to schedule that time. So schedule the time. If you schedule the time, the time comes. That's the time you can actually work on these things. If you don't, it doesn't get done. That's what I found in my business is true of any business. So schedule that time right now. Say I'm going to, in 2 weeks, every other week, I'm going to schedule a 1 hour block of time or whatever. So big takeaways from today's talk. We're at time here. So I want to talk about the big takeaways. If you're posting a job to a job board, expecting to get great candidates, it's already too late. That's just the life, the place we live in. In fact, there's a study done, and this is even before the pandemic, so it's probably been worse now. 75% of the great fit employees you're looking for will never go to a job board. 95% of the highly skilled employees you're looking for, and we're talking about engineers and machinists and maybe doctors and the like, highly skilled, 95% of those folks will never be on a job board. So how are you going to find those folks? You're not going to find them on the job boards, unfortunately. We're living in a new world, so you got to start building your reputation, or you're going to get the leftover candidates, and you're just not going to get enough applications from decent people. If you need time, if you don't have time to get proactive with your recruiting and get out in front and build relationships with people, because that's what this is all about, building relationships over time so that they think about you and they want to work for you. If you don't have time for that, we can help you. And we'd love to show you what that looks like if you're interested. You just have to visit our website. Go ahead and click around, see what you got, see some good information we have there for you. And then feel free to reach out to us through that. I'll also put my email in here if you guys have any questions that you think of later on. We're an open book. I love helping people out with their recruiting problems. So, all right, that's all I got for today. What kind of questions do you guys have for me?
Someone must have a question.
Because if you don't have questions, I got some questions for you.
Ball's in your court, Justin.
All right.
Amber Richardson said, "This was incredible. Thank you so much, Justin. Wonderful as always."
Thank you, Amber. Appreciate that. Yeah, I love teaching people about some of these principles. Hopefully it's not too scary for folks to take on some of these things. I'm going to put my email in here. Guys, do feel free to email me there. And again, on my website, I share that with you. So here's the first question I have for you guys. What was the biggest takeaway you had from today's session? I'd love for you to just put it in the chat. What was the biggest takeaway? This is helpful to me and for understanding how I can structure these kinds of talks. I do a lot of these. What was your biggest takeaway?
Crystal said, "Thank you so much. I can't wait to start using some of these strategies." Crystal
Awesome.
Schultz.
Cool. You're welcome, Crystal. But put in chat, okay, creating the EVP. Yes. EVP, good. Yeah, it's a big one. It's a simple one. It's simple. I say simple. It's simple. It can be complicated if you get too much in your own head, but that's why sometimes it's good to do surveys to find out what's in everybody else's head. Then you don't have to think about it yourself. Creating the EVP, yeah. Typically, HR isn't a marketing specialist. If you have a marketing team, bring them in for some great internal collaboration. Yes, we've seen that successfully done. I was at a trade show last week and talking with an employer down in La Crosse. They're killing it. They don't need us, and that's fine. They're killing it, having their marketing team work with their HR team. And they're doing some strategies. I was like, well, that's cool. I'm gonna take some notes how you're doing that, because I learned some stuff from talking with this HR person down from the La Crosse area, because they were working with a marketing team.
Katie's comment was, "How many women left the workforce last year?" And Crystal's comment was, "Committing the time to social media."
Yeah, committing the time. That's a big one. Yeah, schedule that time. Maybe 1 hour. If you don't, you could do 3 hours once a month, 1 hour a week. It's up to you, whatever you think is most doable, but create those posts ahead of time. This is a tip I'm adding on here. But you do 3 hours and you block out that time, and then you say, okay, these are the topics, and then you write the topics, and then you schedule them, and then boom, you're done. Or in other ways, you just write the topics, and as the week goes, you've got 30 minutes, you just get them out that way. There's different ways of doing it. Well, good. I'm glad this was helpful for everybody. I see we're at time, so I'll leave it there. Again, everyone, thank you again for coming. It was really good.
One last plug, the website, Justin, is
recruitwithdialog.com. Here, I'll put it in the chat as well. Amber, I will make the slides available to Nita and Bill, and so they will be able to share those with you. So you'll have access to all that data I shared.
So this presentation was recorded. It will be posted on our website under trending news, so that it takes a little while for it to happen. But once that's done, I'll send out the link to everybody.